Well, hello everybody and welcome to, 2025 to start with. Happy New Year for those of you who celebrate that sort of thing. Last time I was on, I was wearing a Christmas hat. I'm now wearing a scarf because it's freezing in the UK. But this is a music technology podcast, and we ended last year with talk of our favourite pieces of equipment and whatnot. This year we'll be talking about, I don't know yet, we'll see what the topics bring. But before I start you there, I'm just going to bring in a little plug for our Patreon because we've had a lot of supporters this year so far. So I'm keen to encourage that we get some more. So here's a message. It's 2025 and our Patreon keeps getting better thanks to our supporters. Thank you so much. There's ad-free versions of much of what we post on YouTube, Sonictalk pre-show, Sonic Lab extra videos, the ever-expanding Sonicstate archives, including classics like the top 20 greatest samplers. There's Patreon Discord, a monthly hangout, the excellent members map, impulse responses. Wow, that was pretty unsuccessful then, wasn't it? I'm not quite sure what happened there. we'll just skim over that. So yeah, do support us on Patreon. I obviously there's some sort of error going on there with the uploads. Anyway, so let's get on to our guests. Actually, let's just say hello to everybody in the chat. Nice to see a fulsome chat room. We've got who we got? We got Wagyu, we've got Endorphin, we've got Culture of Ghosts, James Glue. Happy New Year to you all, Zen Artist, everybody, the electronic composer. Nice to see you. Hope if any of you out there in LA area that the fires aren't causing you too much trouble. We did get a message from Charlie Clauser when I sent out the invites for this week's show. He's based in LA and he was saying that, they might have to evacuate. So it looks like things are a bit extreme in terms of weather events and whatnot. And we'll be there obviously in a couple of weeks. So hopefully it's all right and nobody's going to be put out too much. Anyway, this is a music technology show. Let's introduce some guests, shall we? We'll start with Richard Nicol from Pittsburgh Modular, who's there in his lovely depth of field setup. He's obviously using the fancy camera today. You can see just in the background the Tiger keyboard and a few other indeterminate pieces of music technology. Happy New Year, Richard. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for having me back for 2020-25.
You're welcome. We did put it to the committee. We were a bit unsure given your last performance, but everybody said we'd give you another chance. So it's nice to have you back.
This is right around my 1-year anniversary, so I think my field review is coming up here soon.
Wow, I've never had to do that. I guess as an employer, do you have to do employee reviews? That sounds terribly formal. I've never had to do that. It sounds terrifying. I think it would be more stressful for me than perhaps the employer.
Yeah, I only have 4 employees, so it's not something that ever comes up. I interact with everybody pretty personally on a daily basis, so.
Yeah.
There was a point years and years ago when Pittsburgh Modular, we were sort of doing everything in-house, and we did have quite a few employees. And I hated being the boss. I hated sitting at my desk going, hey, you're 15 minutes late today, that kind of thing. So I've spent the last 10 years trying to make sure that never happens again.
I spent the last 10 trying not to be an adult. Yes, and that's fair enough. I think, that's a pretty good goal for 2025. Maybe a moniker a mantra to live by over the next year. We'll flip up back over to this side of the world and say hello to Yoad Nevo there, who's in Nevo Sound Studios. Yoad, nice to see you. I'm no doubt in the middle of something multi-track and are you in Atmos world, or I'm sure I don't know. You can't never talk about what you're doing because we work so far in advance. Have a good Christmas.
Yeah, great Christmas. Very cold. Been to Portugal. Been to Paris. Portugal was great. Paris was as cold as here. Beautiful, but really cold. But when you're a tourist, you kind of tend to be outdoors a little bit more, and it was freezing. But now I'm back in my cozy little cave and surrounded by speakers. Yeah, Dolby Atmos, doing a lot of that these days. Software development, plugins for various brands. And doing what I do.
Excellent. Well, glad to hear it. I hope you have an excellent 2025 as well. And we're coming back. I guess we're going west to Paulee Bow, who's there in Birmingham. To Birmingham. Bow, yeah.
You can't get further from the sea. That's our catchphrase.
Is that the tagline? Oh, nice. That sounds like a great... It's not something you put in the holiday brochure, is it? You can't get further from the sea.
No, but it is like the complete musical centre of the world, right? So that's pretty cool.
I suppose. I'm not sure if it ever has been referred to that.
You had ska, reggae, heavy metal, New Romantics, all around. So, yeah. Which New Romantics are Birmingham famous for? I'm just trying to remember. Duran.
Oh, of course.
Oh, I worked with them.
That backfired, didn't it?
That's a good selection of. Yeah, okay, that's fair enough. I'll rewind that, and I accept that. And of course, I think Judas Priest
from the records.
Judas Priest were. They were. I'm just going to switch. This is very distracting. I've got this thing, and it's catching the corner of my eye, and I'm just going to have to switch it off because it's
Black Sabbath as well. Ozzy.
Oh yeah,
used
of course.
To live in Aston.
Yeah.
I think his brother asked my mum out when she was young. I could have been rock royalty by now if she'd have said yes, obviously.
Okay.
I'd have had different genes, but never mind. So yeah, I have spent all of December absolutely in a hole, basically in my bed, because all of these viruses and flus going around. And I've discovered that I used to be quite blasé about the flu jab and the cold jab and the COVID jab. When you have two little kids, it's not optional anymore. You have to go and get them because you've got twice as many people in the house, little disease factories, I call them. And it's just not an option anymore. So next year, I'm getting on that flu jab train as soon as possible. But because I didn't let it get me down completely. I mean, I was out of action physically, but I thought, well, I can still type a few things up, and I created my first decent sampler instrument from the comfort of my bed.
Yeah.
So, and that's available now on my Patreon. I'm sure Wagyu will find it and post the link. But it's called Dystopia Gallery, and it's all samples from a Sysex hacked Korg General MIDI module. But they're definitely not General MIDI sounds. They're very weird and wonderful, kind of cool pad sounds. So please go check that out if you like odd sounds. Odd sound design. Yeah. It's only like £4 or $5. So there
nice.
We go. That's my plug for today.
Excellent. Well, we do have stuff to talk about. I mean, it's a bit loose because obviously the beginning of the year is generally it's sort of the dregs of these holiday sales, all the kind of the crap that people have got left in the bargain bins, and that doesn't really work with software so much, but I guess in some hardware you would do that. All the, as I like to say, the stuff that the warehouse, the equivalent of Roland's warehouse full of D-beams that they finally cleared the backlog of, and we're not seeing them in any new units. But it's been an interesting one. Let's see what we got. I was going to say coming up, yes. We've got the top 20 greatest samplers on Patreon. I think also Paulie's going to be doing the Erica Synth Steam Pipe review as well. That's coming up. And of course, NAMM is coming up. So we've got a bunch of stuff in the pipeline. So let's get started. I think I'll start with this because I just thought this was a really fascinating development. So this is the EaganMatrix Micro. This is Ed Egan playing something called a Warbl, which is it's like a penny whistle MIDI controller. It's like $300, and it's got, you can see all the axis of kind of stuff down the bottom and how expressive it is. It was, this one is perhaps the most realistic. There's a whole load of different sounds, but this is all actually happening on this guy. So this is the EaganMatrix Micro, which is a tiny little box that has essentially the EaganMatrix in it in terms of the sound box. I think it's going to be around about, what is it? Polyphony nominal 1 to 3, maximum 8. The box itself is 449, so it's probably the most affordable of the Eagans. Yoad, in fact, you've got a Mini.
Yeah, I do.
You've got Hack and Control.
I have the.
I guess
has it got
the same sound engine?
I think it has. I think it does. I mean, it does play 8 voices through MIDI, but I have to say that without using its own kind of interface or keypad or ribbon or whatever you want to call it, which is a very, very cool thing. Let me take it out because it's kind of velcroed here to stuff, so it doesn't move. So this has like this ribbon is suspended on I think it's a piano spring mechanism or something like that, and you can so you have the X, Y, and the Z is kind of there. You have to get used to it, but you can, the cool way of doing it, the proper way of playing it is without any quantizing, but then you have to really be very accurate. But I find that you can set the quantize, so the quantize is kind of incremental,
assistive.
So you can set it to like 0.8 or something like that. That works for me. So you can have the kind of glide thing, but it points you in the right direction. So it's very cool. It's this one on this interface. You can use 2 voices, but you'll have the same Z.
Right.
So the X, Y will,
so it's a monophonic controller, effectively, but with
2 voices. But I think that when you plug it when you use it as a MIDI expander through USB, then it will play 8 voices. But it sounds so different when you play it on a keyboard. Something isn't. I think you need the Osmos thing to make it really shine, because even with an MP keyboard, it's not the same. This has a really, it's a monophonic thing. It's beautiful. My only criticism is that, the output is like a mini jack, and it feels a little bit unprofessional, but it sounds fine. I mean, there's no issues, no noise from the USB or anything like that, but I'm just used to kind of, studio grade equipment, and this feels a little bit. But this new module is amazing because it's so tiny, and I think it does the same thing. So you can use it as a really, really cool 8-voice polyphonic synth without all the bells and whistles. It just has tons of sounds. I tried to get into the patch making universe, and you have to spend years in order to master it. But I mean, it's I get it, but it just takes time because you have to do everything, and it's really, really fully featured. Whatever you want to do, any kind of mathematical sort of
I think that's changed a little bit, because I think that there's been development because Osmos has made this more mainstream, I suppose, or increased the number of users of the engine. There's been a lot more development. So now I think this is what Ed was saying at some point in the past, and I think there are now kind of web hooks into the engine, or hooks into the engine, that enable you to create specific UIs for maybe doing FM or physical modeling or whatever. So that I think that's all either is changing or is about to change, or so I think that's going to be a thing. But I agree, it's not a very familiar.
I mean, it feels like a lab kind of, which is this is what I do for a living. That's what I do all day when I'm not mixing and doing production. So let's say half the time I work with like impossible kind of interfaces which are the backbone of the development side of it. Yes. So I'm not going to do that in my spare time. I just want to play this as an instrument. So I just flip through some presets. I do have the software on the screen because you have to be able to, change the reverb and decay and whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
And the quantize, like I said, because my sweet spot, but you have to change it per patch and things like that. So great thing. And this thing looks really amazing. I think that this wind controller, he makes beautiful kind of
the Warbl, it's really exactly. I think that's the thing. But what it shows is that having the right physical input interface with it will really make it come to life. Actually, Ed Egan's in the chat, and he says, yes, we are developing specific UIs, as I say, in development. We call them overlay synths.
Great.
So that does sound really good. That's going to be quite exciting.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think that'll make a really big difference. This you mentioned this one, Paulie, in the sort of like when I was fishing for topics at the beginning of the year.
In desperation.
Well, yeah, to a degree. I mean, it's interesting that the unit itself does have a sort of slightly 3D printed vibe to it, which maybe will be fine. I don't know how many, but I guess once you've got the engine, you've got the circuit boards, you can ramp up. So I wonder. I mean, this is the sort of thing you could imagine they might be taken by surprise and sell like way more than they were expecting. At 449,
definitely,
it's starting to be really.
I really hope they do. I really hope they do. I can't recommend it enough. I think that anyone who buys it will be very, very happy with it. I can guarantee that. But I think that it's important that many people buy it for the community, because the more people, the more income, the more friendly it will be, and the more very wide.
Yeah. So, Paulie, I mean, I don't know if there's anything open source about this or anything, but it does look like it's a lot of fun.
It looks really cool. The engine itself has interested me for a while. Seeing that matrix grid of stuff where you can modulate things with other things appeals to me, because I quite like, digital virtual modular environments. Like I'm used to the Nord modular kind of line.
Interesting.
So having that kind of thing, but with more of a physical modeling slant on it. And as you can hear from that demo, the synthesis sounds really, really good,
when it's
and
controlled
really
with
captures a lot of nuance.
Yeah.
But to be honest, once I watched the video, I had more gas for the Warbl, because I am like
a penny whistleist
person. A penny whistleist. Bit of Titanic there. So well, every Irish kid is given a tin whistle at some point in their lives, basically.
So, it's amazing. I mean, the Warbl 2 is now. It's got BLE, MIDI over BLE. It's like $290, which I think for that level of expression is astonishing. I mean, no, it's only mono.
I saw you could bend it and do weird things with it, right?
Yeah, it looks really, really.
It's not just like a tin whistle where you have the finger holes. I think you can do something for modulation.
Yeah,
I'm not entirely sure if.
No, it's got elevation. It's got twist.
Yes.
It's got
twist,
wobble. It's got breath control. Yeah. It's also got various buttons and modifiers underneath, which give it a lot of extra control.
Cool.
Yeah,
because I heard at one point in the video he did go. Do a bit of flutter tonguing, but I'm not sure if that was set off by actually going or by twisting something. So I'm going to read more into it, because my wind instrument knowledge starts and ends with the tin whistle, and I've never really gotten into clarinets and saxophones and all these sorts of things. There's not really time to learn that many instruments, so I like the idea of this tin whistle based or whistle based MIDI controller.
I wonder if because lots of kids play recorders in a lot of cultures, so that might be another thing.
Yes.
Rich, this looks really interesting, and but it does. I mean, do you think this possibly means? I mean, just a general question, but I'll come back to you, Rich. That as much as last year or the last 18 months or 2 years have been all about wavetables, this year will be fine. Will be physical modeling a bit more. I don't know. It might be interesting.
I kind of hope so. I love physical modeling. I love that sort of blurry area where you start to get into the It's not quite real. It's not quite fake. And that's where you can really create some interesting sounds that go beyond playing an actual tin whistle or playing an actual saxophone. This box, I think, is a great way to open up these sounds that are really, really well done in this synth engine, which is beautiful sounding, to a larger audience, whether it be with the whistle or other MPE controllers. I think this is I'm really impressed with this, and I think for the price, it's for if you want into that really expressive playing, this is a great way to go. I do hope physical modeling is the thing this year, although we just started talking about doing wavetable stuff. But we're always years behind anyway. That's all right.
You used to have a prototype wavetable thing, didn't you, Rich? It was like a huge module. It was like the sequel to the DNA symbiotic waves, I think. And it was never released. And I've always looked at that and gone, that's a lovely looking module.
I could send you one. We designed that fully, and I made I think 6 or 7 prototypes. And right as it was going to go into production, I pulled it back because at that point, our analog engineer, Michael Johnson, was getting a lot more involved, and we just didn't have the bandwidth to do both analog and digital stuff. So we decided, let's just focus on what we're really good at, what we're really truly passionate about, which was the analog side.
Yeah, interesting.
I do love that DNA, though. Some of the wave combinations are absolutely insane. I play it sometimes. I'm like, what mind came up with this? So there we go. So anything wavetable from you, Rich, will be great.
Sorry,
absolutely. Yeah, I want to say I have a little bit of a bittersweet experience with wavetable, because we worked on Waves Codex, which is a wavetable, format corrected and all that, very, very sophisticated synth. And we were at the final stages just before release. And there was some silly things that we insisted on getting, like perfecting and all that. And then Serum released their product. And they took all the focus and all the kind of, they took the stage basically, and Codex, that's the Waves Codex, and it never got the focus that it was supposed to have, and that just shows you how timing is so crucial, because there was something silly. We could have just released it, but we were like really kind of being very specific about some ironing, some stuff and things like that. It was ready. We could have released it. I'm not saying, Serum is amazing. Codex is different. It's more like a classic synth. We can get, I did wavetables of all my, analog stuff, getting them to sweep, and it, in terms of quality, the quality of the wavetable, it's really lush and kind of, but Serum has something which is more kind of EDM and all that, and I can see why it's appealing. It's a great, I love Serum, but that's my experience. We worked for like 2 years on Codex and stuff, and it didn't get the,
well, I'm sorry to hear that, but I guess that's you can take solace in all the other hits, I suppose. I'm just going to take a quick break for a mention of our sponsors, who are still here for 2025. Very much appreciated.
Introducing iZotope Cascadia, intelligent delay without distraction. Add depth and rhythm with Cascadia's spacious musical tape delay, all while carving out space with adaptive unmasking, effortlessly blending echoes, slapbacks and textures into your tracks. Intelligent delay without distraction. Head to iZotope.com today and download a free trial and learn more.
Once again, we thank iZotope for their continued sponsorship. Much appreciated. Now back to the show. Yes, indeed. So what's next? We've got a fairly loose, to be honest, it's a fairly loose selection of topics. Rich, did I come to you about wavetables? I've just suddenly realised perhaps I didn't. Not wavetables, about that last topic. I did, didn't I? Sorry, I've just suddenly thought. Yeah, my short-term memory is obviously shot. So, and it's nothing to do with what I was doing over Christmas. It's just there's so many threads to think of. Let's have a look then. Let's see what's next. Let's just bring up the interface and see. Well, of course, we're going into 2025, and I suppose part of what we said there was some kind of prediction there in that maybe physical modelling would be more of a thing for 2025. I've got no video to play. I suppose I could have come up with some sort of fanfare, but the topic really is predictions for 2025. I mean, really, that's not really it, is it? I'll just put that in there. I mean, it doesn't really mean anything apart from that. I think I've just put the marker in. So obviously, there's going to be a lot of changes, I think, this year. I mean, there's all sorts of international factors that will probably change things. There's been some difficult times of this year. There's AI. There's so many factors that I think are going to result in a big shift in technology. Am I hearing a TV on or something somewhere? I'm kind of just a bit distracted there. Is that background noise? I don't know if that's maybe not. No. Oh, wait, anyway, Rich, I'll come to you, I think, just purely because I'm curious. Yeah, let's come to you. I mean, we like to watch the music technology world, and so we're kind of, we may have some idea of what that is that we're going to be seeing.
Well, if I had to it's tough to make predictions because I see the world through such a sort of small lens of, what I do. And what I'm interested in, probably like most artists, you're always looking for the thing that is going to scratch your personal creative itch. But I think we're going to see some really interesting drum machines this year. I think it's I felt like we had a little bit of a lull last year in new drum machines. Now there's been some great drum machines in the last few years, like the Perkins Electron has come out with. Every time they come out with something, it's cool. But I think this year there's going to be some really interesting drum machine stuff happening. We saw some of that this past week.
Yes, well, we've got that. We've got that. The CyDrum. Is that what you're talking about?
I think they announced it on a Sunday or something, which just seemed like the strangest day to announce something I've ever noticed. But beyond that, I think because of the sort of strange world that we live in, that smaller things are going to become more popular and more interesting. And I think it's going to take the industry a little bit time to get there. But I think pedals are going to become a thing that starts selling really well. And a lot of interesting ideas are going to come out of that. And I think maybe back into, I think Eurorack might have a resurgence, just this, because it's something you can sort of build up over time. And because it seems like over the last few years, Eurorack has kind of faded out a little bit. I'm hoping that some of the sort of heavy-hitting designers who've maybe sat out the last few years for whatever reason have something interesting to show in 2025. I'm not trying to allude to anything that I have. I don't think we have any Eurorack plans for 2025. But I do love Eurorack, and I hope to see some really interesting both analog and digital stuff.
Yeah,
so that's I don't know if that's a prediction as much as it is just a wish list, but there we go.
That's fair enough. I just want to say thanks to the electronic composer. Happy New Year, Sonicstate. Very much appreciated. Apparently that's their 5th super chat, I've been informed by the YouTube. So thank you very much. That's very kind. Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? There are so many directions this could go in. I mean, I think... I don't know. Paulee, what are your thoughts? Do you think we're going to have more retro technology?
Oh, definitely. We'll have more retro technology because nostalgia sells more than anything, doesn't it? But my thoughts on this question were there were two of them. There were two thoughts I have, and they're both kind of. They're both kind of opposing one another. There's one kind of force which is positive and one force which is negative in the open source and smaller maker space. So if we start with the negative, there's this new thing obviously come in called the General Product Safety Regulation thing by the EU, regulation by the EU, which means that any business which sells to the EU needs a person, a fall guy, a representative in the EU to I guess take the blame if something goes wrong with the order. So that means I know a lot of smaller UK sellers, makers, who just can't sell to Europe at the moment. They're like, actually, if you've got a lot of money to throw at the problem, you can hire an agency to be your fall guy / danger man in the EU representative. But if you don't have that initial money, then you're just kind of stuck. And it's kind of come in. And
December
really
16th, I think it was, wasn't it?
Yes.
I think it came in.
It's really
I noticed there's been a lot of talk about it by Robin Rimbaud Scada, particularly when it comes to music merch and physical hardware of selling CDs and stuff in and out of the EU.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a bit of a... I was trying to find a representative within, the government or something that we could maybe develop that over Christmas, but I wasn't able to. So, yeah, that's a very valid point.
But the positive force is that we seem to have come out of the global chip shortage crisis. Or if we haven't come out of it, it seems to be in a bit of a lull. So there's lots of small microcontroller boards around, Raspberry Pis, Orange Pis, Teensies, the lot of them, which means that actually in the open source space, there's been some incredible new exciting things happening. I've got a Zintian to build, which is a Pi 5 based Linux Groovebox. Electron style Groovebox, but it runs Linux, so that's cool. But I'd recommend, if you're interested in any of this stuff, and if you're a bit of a tinker and maybe you like getting a kit and building something, there's a guy called Floyd Steinberg on
yes, I've seen this stuff, yeah.
On YouTube. I lost the word YouTube then, must be old age. It just went from my head. That thing that people have videos on, and watch some of his stuff, because he turned me on to the new version of Zintian. There was a new kind of pocket tracker that he looked at recently, which is tiny, but it's got like an FM synth and I think like a 303 synth in and sample playback. And I'm like, people are doing more and more cool little stuff with teensies and pies and stuff like that now. So I think we'll see a lot more of that in the future. And, if people can't sell to Europe, they'll be able to at least give their designs to
That's
an
a really interesting
audience
idea, yeah. I mean, open source, there'll be... necessity often leads to creativity, I suppose, and that's yes. With existing, because obviously the hardware itself is going to be sellable. That's an interesting point. Yeah, that might lead to a lot more innovation. Nice one,
definitely. And even in some commercial synths, we're seeing a lot of open source options, aren't we? Like in the Korg.
Yeah,
they're up to SDK 3 now, I think, for the new Chaos Pad. I mean, it's a shame that some of them aren't backwards compatible, but it's good that there's constant development of these kind of user open source, synths and stuff.
Interesting. Yeah. I hadn't really thought about that, but it kind of, I suppose it does make sense. I mean, of course, we've got not only we've got that issue with Brexit, but if the US tariffs come in, who knows what that will lead to. I mean, that's just completely unknown. I suppose it's just, we can't really comment on it until we know what it is, because it's but I know, Yoad, is there, I mean, obviously asking you feels a little bit like asking you to give away the trade secrets, so but exactly. In terms of just sort of trend wise stuff,
I have to be very careful with what I say, because I'm involved with quite a few projects that are using new technologies and AI and neural networks. So I think we're going to see more of that, and kind of more of that in a way that integrates more seamlessly you remember how Mid-Journey, it started, you have to go and create a user somewhere else and log in and do all those kind of things, and now you just have it on your phone. So in the same way, we're seeing the trend of integrating AI into plugins,
Right.
into maybe standalone applications, but also directly into plugins. And that will make things, because at the moment it's a little bit awkward to use some of these engines. But the more integrated they will become, it will be more transparent, and it will be like a tool, like a normal tool, in the same way that in the early days of plugins, you couldn't do stuff like noise reduction in real time because you just didn't have enough computing power, or linear phase EQ, or things like that, or convolution reverb. You had to go and process it offline and things like that, and it was awkward. And now everyone uses it without even thinking about it. So I think that this is kind of the next couple of years are maybe the transition years from AI being a novelty and into something which is kind of household, and you use it every day. Obviously, we have products like Clarity VX and Clarity D Reverb, which we released in 2023. Wow, it's funny to say 2023 now, because I'm thinking last year, but it's not anymore.
Yeah.
Which are, it's a normal plugin, but the amount of stuff that's going underneath, the training we did with thousands and hundreds of thousands of files, and this and that, and it's just a plugin. It's a noise reduction, and it works. So things like that we're going to see more and more of that, and I think we're going to see more and more of the kind of, again, I have to be careful about generative stuff.
Well, stuff that's actually, maybe stuff that integrated. I think the thing, from just to address the AI thing at the moment, I think where we are at the moment, and it's almost laughable, really, is AI has just literally been used to burn money. Most of these companies who have invested have yet to turn any form of profit, and yet the sums that are going in. This is for general stuff, I think, rather than specific. So I think possibly what we're going to see aligns with what you're saying, Yoad, which is we'll see much more specific uses for this, which is not trying to kind of be a more
take
general AI mod. Yeah, it's just something that will be really, really good for analyzing musical data, for instance. Doesn't need any other stuff, doesn't need to know how to write like Carl Asimov or any, doesn't need any of that stuff. It just needs to know how to, suggest some great FM algorithms or whatever it may be. So I think we'll end up with these very sort of micro things, and the rest of the world will sort of go off and continue to, maybe we'll start to see some actual benefits and things that make it useful to us and don't feel like we're sort of burning the planet down to achieve something that's almost sort of pie in the sky. So hopefully that technology will start to percolate down, because we've had a very powerful period of research and investment. Unprecedented. I've never seen this on such a global level, with so many companies, big companies, doing this. So the technology is bound to come. It's like the space race, isn't it? All that money that went into it, the technology and the techniques will trickle down to kind of like pens and Teflon cooking items. We'll start to see that sort of stuff happening, I hope. And I think the note, we're also seeing lots of people figuring out how to make money out of generative stuff by spoofing the algorithms. Ben Jordan's excellent video recently was very good about that, if somewhat depressing, and there are more stories to come. But yeah, I think, without being too scared of the old AI thing, I think we'll start to see things that kind of go, oh yeah, that is useful. I can get on board with that. I don't know if anybody else. I think maybe what I'll do is let you percolate on that, and I'll just run a message from our friends. Back in a second.
And it's good for me because it makes me write something.
Complete 50, a do-it-all production bundle for endless sonic inspiration.
I did not know it could do that.
You have your low sounds, you have your mid sounds, you have your high sounds.
Create any sound imaginable.
All together, sounds nice and big.
Whatever sound your music needs, make it with Complete 50. Yep, and we thank them very much for their support. It's great to have them here for 2025. As we know, things are tighter, and I do encourage you to join our Patreon as well. Why not? I'll get a second plug for that in. We've actually got some new hardware as well. Maybe we can get to that. I know the AI thing, people are probably sick of talking about it, but I think maybe we've covered that enough. So let's go to the new CyDrums from SonicWare, which, as we say, was released for some reason on a Sunday.
Not analog. Not analog.
These guys are kind of on fire. So many new units last year.
A Neo hyperactive drum synthesizer. CyDrums.
Yeah, I won't play the whole video. You can go and check that out. But this very much, there are things about it that remind me a little bit of Machine Drum. The idea of the sort of electron model, little units, little sort of engines, machines that you can then use. I don't know what the sequencer and all that stuff is going on with there. I did check to see if they were at NAMM, and it doesn't look like they are. So I don't think I'll be able to go to that. So we might have to end up getting one sent to Paulee to look at, who I'm sure won't be too disappointed by that. Yeah, I could see you. But yeah, you were mentioning that this is the sort of thing that's interesting to you, this sort of new drum machines and kind of smaller so CyDrum, what do you reckon? SonicWare, isn't it?
Yeah, this team has been around now, it seems like maybe 4 or 5 years, and they just keep putting out really interesting things. They've managed to do something that I've sort of pushed towards and dreamt about for years and years, which is come up with a platform that you can just sort of reskin and change the software side of it. Now, I don't dig into the software world too much, but I love the idea that, they sort of have two shapes. They've got the larger Groovebox type thing where they did the new ambient
Liven sort of shape,
yeah, and then they have this smaller drum machine style that now they've used a few times for like lo-fi samplers and that type of thing. But what that allows them to do then is really focus on the software side and come up with some really great sounding, really interesting ideas. And I think this one in particular, and I was reading about it last night and watching the videos, and I went there hoping to order one, and the first batch had been sold out. So I figure I will.
Yeah, I think you have to wait till after January. I think they're for $399, which seems it's not it's a pretty reasonable amount of money for the for what you're getting there. So yeah.
That seems like a great price, and now it does say it's going to go up to $499 after an introductory period. Okay. I don't know how long that's going to be, but even at $499, I think you're getting a really interesting sound set, a drum machine that doesn't sound like anything else, which is I'm a huge fan of. This idea, I think Machine Drum would be a similar thing, but I owned a Machine Drum for years, and although I can hear little similarities, I think they live in their own world enough that there's not going to be a whole lot of overlap. And certainly Machine Drums now are on Reverb are going for, $2,000. So to make something affordable that gives you that sense of creativity as far as having all these engines where you're not just using samples, you actually have a sound that can change and evolve over time. I think this thing is fantastic, and I can't wait to have one and play with.
Yeah, nice. I know it's Paulie. You were wielding one of the. I guess which one was that? Okay. So they're the two shapes. So it's quite small, actually. I hadn't realised
the two sizes that they do. Sizes. I think. Yeah. So I think the new one will be this size with the little Game Boy-like controls. Yeah, this one's the Mega Synthesis, of course, with the Sega Mega Drive sounds in. I like this team and the variety of synthesis methods that they just go after. They're like, nothing is, as long as it's digital, of course, nothing is off limits. And now a wavetable based drum synthesizer, and of course there's a couple of. There's about 22 algorithms inside and lots of wavetables you can run into those algorithms. I was looking at the manual and rubbing my hands and, all the little algorithm specs.
Oh, the algorithm graphics, as well.
The algorithm graphics. But I have long been a fan of using wavetables for drum synthesis. You don't think of it really. You think more of maybe using standard analog building blocks, mixing basic wave shapes with FM and a bit of noise. But when you add the wavetable element to it, you get a bit of, you get more motion for one thing, because you can obviously arc the spread of the wavetable waves as the drum goes along. But you also get a nice bit of unpredictability. Say you've built up a drum sound you like, and then you're like, actually, no, I'm bored with that. I'm going to keep the shape of my drum sound, but I'm just going to change the wavetable, and all of a sudden it sounds completely different. And I've done that kind of thing a lot on the Microwave XT, which obviously I did a video on recently, just using the envelopes to create drum sounds with wavetable elements. So putting that putting that kind of really bizarre niche synthesis, wavetables with wave folding and all that, and these drum algorithms in a little box is just really appealing to me, putting that kind of power in a tiny thing that you can take, wherever with you.
They've really come along, haven't they? No, absolutely. They've really come along, haven't they? Because I remember their first things looked a bit sort of jokey and sort of didn't take it seriously. But now they've really...
one,
yeah, I remember all of that.
Well, it looked okay. It was, I think.
It felt like it was underdeveloped.
Sort of first product.
yeah,
potentially. I think they got more experience
OP1
now.
vibe.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, I don't know how you feel about drum synthesis. I'm not sure if we discussed it before. I mean, it must have come up.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I have to say that there's one thing that I'm not quite sure I understand about the technology. The whole idea of wavetable is that you loop PCM in a way that creates cycles that are pitched. So, and in order for it to morph over time, it has to be looped. So I don't quite understand, unless you're using the wavetable as a modulator to modulate noise, or to in a way similar to vocoder or something like that, which I assume is what they do. Paulee, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, in some of the algorithms, that's exactly what's happening. They're using modulators and noise and
yes, because if you just use wavetables, you will have pitched information, and the one thing which is impossible to get in a wavetable is noise. Even when you use speech and stuff, so the sibilant kind of the S's and the sh and all that, they become pitched as well because of the looping of the slot of the table. So I understand that you use it as a kind of frequency template to modulate a noise-based generator. That I can understand, and I think it's a great way of doing it. It's kind of between almost like FM vocoding and things like that. So I can see how you get very sort of lo-fi, and it's funny because it's all those artifacts that we were trying to get rid of, and that were in the way of stuff, that unwanted kind of frequency modulation on samples, aliasing, and all that. And now we made a whole circle, and now we're using those to actually create the sound. So it's almost like you take the unwanted stuff. It's like recycling noise, basically.
Yeah, interesting.
Love it.
I think, like I said, they were doing 100 to be shipped by the end of January, and then they'll go into production. Those are priced at $399. So if you didn't get your hands on it, then but it's good to see a company kind of just getting it right and figuring out how to make it. I think they sell direct as well, so it may or may not be easier. I don't know how it means they interact with the EU. I hope it's all works out. I think they're based in Japan.
I also think they kind of save money, or they did definitely design it to a price, but they don't cut the wrong corners, I feel. You know, for instance, like the pots are fine, they're not wobbly. The buttons kind of are responsive enough. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's good as well.
Yeah.
It's made to a price, but it's not shabby, shall we say.
Yeah,
Definitely
excellent.
usable.
Definitely. Okay. I think I think what I was going to do, I did have another topic lined up, but there seems to be a lot of call in the comments to discuss the whole teenage engineering kind of debacle. And this is what I understand. I think basically Scott Plays Synths, who is a YouTuber, posted something based around the fact that Bad Gear, Florian Pills had a video taken down that happened to feature some TE stuff. He made the supposition that it was done out of kind of bad grace, and that they were throwing their weight around, whereas it turns out that might not be the case at all. So he then took his video down, but he got a lot of grief for it. And then I spoke to Florian and said, what's going on? And he said, well, it got taken down. I'm not entirely sure why. There are several reasons. It could be that Teenage Engineering are being arsey because they don't like the way they're being presented, but I just don't see why they would do that purposefully. They may have done. I mean, that's one possibility. It may be the composer of the original music in the mashup that Florian did has his own publishing thing, and they went, we're not having it. But they took it down. It may be the fact that they used Monty Python video samples in there. Imagine they're extremely litigious, and they may have pulled it down. Florian didn't know exactly the wording of the reason for the takedown. So I think there's been a lot of storm about this, and I think Scott has had his fingers badly burnt because he didn't realise the depth of feeling. And I also like to add, there's absolutely no justification for him to be treated badly in any way. But I will also add, if you're going to post tabloid-style videos with tabloid style headlines, then you've got to expect some heat from that, particularly if you got it wrong the first time. And I know it was a genuine mistake, and I do feel bad for him, but he didn't get the facts right. And if you're going to do that sort of thing, you sort of have to get your facts right. And I think there aren't enough facts. The reason we're not talking about it is because the video is no longer online. He's taken it down, and we don't have the facts. So that's why we're not talking about it, even though I have just talked about it. So I suppose in a way, but I just wanted to explain why, because there's just all we will do is add fuel to a fire that was started sort of accidentally by the looks of things, or certainly got out of hand. The barbecue that was lit with petrol didn't go as planned, shall we say. That may be the way I would. So anyway, we did have the nodal red thing, but I'm feeling like I might just sort of knock things on the head. Keep this a little bit shorter this week because I've got other stuff to be getting on with. Obviously, NAMM is coming around the corner. By the way, if there's stuff that is going to be there or want to be seen, just send us a message, because we can't keep up with anything. There's going to be myself and Ed and Jim from Synth Memes will be covering, and Mira. So we're a small team. So if there's stuff that we don't know about, inevitably there will be. Just keep us posted, and we will do that. So Rich, you're going to be in Buchel and Friends, so we'll see you on the Sunday, all being well, which is in Echo Park. That's the sort of side show. It was the same show last year, and it was on the Saturday, and we did 2 days at NAMM. We went to the Buchel and Friends, shot some videos, and then went back for NAMM on Sunday. This time, NAMM only runs till Saturday. Buchel and Friends runs Saturday, Sunday in Echo Park. So we'll be there on Sunday, or we'll be there on Saturday night and then go on Sunday for the full day and shoot some stuff. So we'll definitely see you there. So I guess, are you showing, or are you just going to hang out and be amongst your synth people?
I think I'm just going to go hang out. For a while, I was doing this series of videos where I would important interviews where I would interview people like the creators and designers and ask them sort of about their process. And I think I'm going to do some of that stuff. I'm not showing anything. I'll be there Saturday. I convinced my wife to go with me, so we're just going to hang out there for one day, and then we're going to go down to the beach or something for a couple days before we come home. But it should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it.
That sounds great. Yeah, we're going to spend an evening. Sunday night, we're going to Marina Del Rey to a hotel that's got a decent restaurant, and that's it. That's my time off, and then I fly back on Monday. But so, Paulie, what's next for you? You're presumably, you've got steam pipe stuff to do, and whatever else.
Editing steam pipe. The intro to the steam pipe video is a bit of a collab with banjo guy Ollie. I don't know if you know banjo guy Ollie, but he's a very talented bodhran / bouzouki player and many other instruments. So I got him to do some of that kind of stuff, and we're doing a cool Irish kind of sounding jig to start the steam pipe video. So look out for that maybe next week. Yeah, if I don't get ill again.
Yeah, well, I hope you don't. I mean, obviously, we don't want to.
Yes.
I'm desperately trying not to get ill. Or if I get ill, I want to be ill now. I don't want to be ill in 10 days' time. But anyway.
Yes.
Well, we look forward to that. Thank you, Paul.
Lock yourself away.
And, and Yoad, nice to see you, of course, as ever. I guess you're alt-tabbing into something you can't talk about, but I hope everything's good with you, and we'll see you soon, I guess, right?
Yeah. Good to be here as always. I mean, I'm just going to add, I always said that I'm not going to ever get into video editing. Well, I have.
Oh dear.
It's been, I know. It's been years since I did all those Waves videos, which for some reason, have become very, very popular. A few million hits for something which was very low-key at the time. I mean, it was a different era of YouTube, like 10 years ago, or 5 years ago even. But now I started my own channel, and I'm doing some videos in here. That's why the new camera, I have another one here. The whole idea was that the whole setup is kind of seamless, so you don't see anything like a studio, like I'm sure your place looks like. So it's kind of seamlessly integrated. I just press a few buttons and I can be on my way recording. And I started editing as well, which is fun. I mean, it's good to get into a new thing.
What are you using? I'm curious. Are you using Resolve?
I'm using DaVinci. I'm using Resolve, which is great. So, I've been looking at timelines for decades. So it's another timeline, basically.
Well, I will say the thing, if you're used to editing audio, which obviously you are, Resolve is a great way to work, because you can work sort of to the audio much more easily, and it feels much more natural.
It took me a couple of weeks. I'm now as quick as I am in Logic. It's just getting into the mindset of tempo, shots, angles, color correction, and all that, which I was never into. So it's nice to get into something new. I thought it would take me a lot longer to get the hang of it, but it's nice to do something different.
Excellent. Well, if you're in video mode, I'll have to have a conversation with you. If you're already shooting, maybe we could get some more stuff with you.
I'm totally up for it. And now the setup is really ready for anything. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the key, just being able to switch it on and go, right, I'm going to do something now. Yeah.
Yes.
That's absolutely right. Well, folks, thank you very much. Thanks to everybody in the chat room. Thanks to everybody who has, I guess we have had some people watching on TikTok. I have absolutely no idea, but this was our first time. So hopefully, yeah, the young'uns. Hopefully, I haven't talked too much gobbledygook. There's an old bloke with a scarf. Yeah, excellent. I'm sure that'll probably trend. Although my daughter does tell me that there was a whole series of TikTok videos where people were using Tom's Diner the original Tom's Diner as the music bed towards the end of last year. So I sort of have a vicarious link to it somehow, but not that it means anything to me. But right, well, that's it for this week. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. I guess next week will it be the last? It's the 8th today, isn't it? So it'll be the 15th. Yeah, it'll be the last show before NAMM next week. So yeah, rumours and all that kind of stuff. So thank you very much. See you all next time. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.